So yesterday, Pope Francis issued his decree on homosexual couples and the blessings thereof by Catholic priests. And this is no surprise to a lot of people. It's been in the works for some time now. He was, his people were talking to the German Bishops' Conference, which is known as the most liberal in the whole world. And they're doing their normal doublespeak, the yes and no thing. It's very Orwellian, whereas the church used to be very clear about doctrine because it's meant for a purpose. Clarity of doctrine is meant for the salvation of souls and for understanding. And now it's become about supplicating, about compromise with no end. Say one thing, deny, affirm and deny. It's this back and forth, plausible deniability. All these horrible strategies to stay in political power are now come to fruition in Pope Francis's decree of blessing homosexual couples. Now, the distinction may be clear, and the document tries to elaborate on this, but you can bless individuals, but not in a state of mortal sin as a homosexual relationship is. And that's what's so key about this is blessing of a homosexual union, the coupleness of the two people, that is a blessing of sin, and which the church nor God can do. Because blessing is to give a good purpose, essentially, in the context of a higher truth, higher power. So, yeah, just to show me, it was called Fiducia Supplicans, and it was issued yesterday by the Dicastery of the Doctrine of the Faith, new Cardinal, Perfect Victor Manuel Fernandez, who is extremely liberal, and he was elevated to the former Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith after Cardinal Mueller. Cardinal Mueller before him was much more traditional and was assigned to that position by a more conservative bishop, Pope Benedict. So Pope Francis is just, since he was elected into office, has just been taking one step after another to put the right pieces in play so that this now can come to fruition. His plans are now being put into effect. What is his plans? For the destruction of the traditional Catholic Church, the traditional understanding, the traditional doctrines. And it's too much of a topic to get into now, but in a nutshell, the deposit of faith, which was ended at the last apostle, is the traditional teachings of the church. There's no new teachings that can derive from that deposit of faith. That is what our Lord taught the apostles directly. But Francis, through doublespeak and insinuations, he's trying to change the doctrine effectively. And the reason why he can do that is because plausible deniability, plausible doubt. Normies are not excited. They're not. First of all, they're not excited about faith, about Christianity. They're not. We're living in a secular world. And they're also not theologians, so they don't have time to really delve into every single point of doctrine, but the logic speaks for itself. Now, I said pieces in play. This is it's wrapped up with, there's a deep state and there's a deep church. Okay, they are definitely in collaboration, and that's not just my opinion. I mean, there's the Bilderberg group meetings that takes place, I believe, in Netherlands, and it's the highest, most powerful figures in the world, bankers, etc. They come together and they discuss and that's the secret about it. They discuss politics and Bill Gates's initiatives and things like that. Just high, powerful people, powerful, rich people, and I don't remember what year, but for the first time ever, a cardinal from the church or a representative from the Vatican went to the Bilderberg groups. I can't remember what year it was. I want to say 2015. But so the Vatican is actively involved in collaborating with some agenda. I'm not even saying what the agenda is, but I think it's plain to see from what the church has been doing lately, that the church and the deep state and the deep church have now agreed that climate change, homosexual, the LGBTQ agenda, and depopulation of the world, Gaia worship essentially is now the priority. And Pope Francis, like Joe Biden, who is a puppet, is just taking orders from his overlords essentially, and that's putting it nicely. Right? Because if you look at this stuff, it doesn't line up with Catholic teaching. If you believe in a church, if you believe in God, it must be consistent. If God changes his mind, well, there's no telling what's going to happen. But if you believe God is consistent, which I do, and I think the evidence is without a doubt clear, and then Pope Francis is going a different direction. So again, this gives you some idea of some doublespeak. In paragraph 31 of the text, within the horizon outlined here is the possibility of blessings of couples in irregular situations and of same-sex couples, the form of which should not find any ritual fixation on the part of the ecclesial authorities in order not to produce confusion with the blessing proper to the sacrament of marriage. Okay, so he goes on to say it shouldn't be confused with a marriage. It should be a blessing. It should be understood as an irregular situation. Okay, that causes a lot of confusion. Marriage can look like many different things, and this is their strategy. And I want everybody to understand that is the New World regime, which the Vatican is a part of. They want you to be confused. Confusion is the entry point by which they can get in. They can change your mind. They're manipulators. If you were to go up to them, and I've went up to clergy a lot in my life and just said, God, try to get a clear answer, or I sent letters, things like that, and they don't give you a straight answer. They dance around it like a politician, and I want you to understand that they're not here to be clear. And then he gives the priest the discretion. So however a priest interprets marriage rights, they can just leave it up to that priest. And then at one point he's defining, he's reasserting the truth about marriage, that it's exclusive, stable, and indissoluble. So he's given a little and he's getting a little. So he's like, well, if I get blessing of same-sex couples, then I will reaffirm the truth about marriage and not permit these same-sex couples to be blessed in a matrimonial union or anything that resembles it. So, and then he goes on to say, and then he says, one must also avoid the risk of reducing the meaning of a blessing to this point of view alone, for it would lead us to expect the same moral conditions for a simple blessing that are called for in the reception of the sacraments. Such a risk requires that we broaden this perspective further. Indeed, there is a danger that a pastoral gesture that is so beloved and widespread will be subject to too many moral prerequisites, which, under the claim of control, could overshadow the unconditional power of God's love that forms the basis for the gesture of blessing. So a lot of it's meant to throw you, and that's what's so unfortunate about all this. Pope Francis has been hit with a number of different dubia, which are basically questions by cardinals, by high-ranking church members that require a yes or no answer, because he's so vague in his teaching. Yes or no. Is this or is that? He's been hit a number of times. I know Cardinal Berg was involved more than once. And he would ignore, usually his strategy is to ignore the dubia for a long period of time, and then he'll come back with answers just as vague. So this is not surprising. He's very much in an elitist, a globalist, Francis. and he's attempting to, put a veil over the situation and hoping that the criticism will go away. So, he's surrounded by homosexuals in the Vatican. A lot of priests today are homosexual, even though Benedict upheld the church teaching that if you are sexually inclined to the same sex, you are not permitted to become a priest. That is upheld, but people just ignore it. That's the sad state of our church. The priesthood, the Novus priesthood, is largely seen as a gay profession. But that's what happens when you take the actual faith out of it. When you take faith, an actual belief from it, it's just anything can happen. At that point, it becomes corrupted. But Archbishop Vigano, he coined the phrase "the deep church." There's just a network in the church right now that's based on lies, based on lack of belief, that's perpetuating this monster. Either be with the traditional church or against it. Don't try to play both sides, because you can't have two masters. Either you want the consistent truth held from the beginning, or you want the new truth started in the 1960s. So we'll see where this goes, and I have a feeling it will get worse, but at the same time, I believe that it's stuff like this that kind of puts the nails in the coffin for Pope Francis' pontificate, because I think this type of thing wakes up people, and exorcists have even said that the demons, when they deal with exorcism, they are lamenting the fact that their time is almost up, because usually they don't know the future, but they know that when homosexuality becomes a norm, then God does not allow it to permit it to continue much longer before it's reset, or there's a call for it to be morality to be re-examined, to be the natural law, natural ethics. It begins to be accepted once again. So we shall see, and the surprises are waiting for us with Pope Francis. But at least the thing we have to do is just acknowledge they are contradictory to the church's teaching, and Catholics everywhere. This man is making you look like a fool. This fraud, because fraud is he's presenting himself to be Catholic, and he is not Catholic. He does not teach Catholicism, so he's a fraud. And I don't want to go into it now, but there's a whole list of heresies. I just on Ruate Caeli, the website, the blog, there's there's just an article on all his heresies just listed out and explained, and it's just, you just scroll through it. And I've seen this for years now. I'm following this, and I've been seeing what he's been doing, and it's not getting more traditional. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one.